Hey guys, recently I was fishing and there was a group in another boat fishing, and they were catching some pretty good fish, and I noticed that they hooked one and they brought it onto the boat, and after a while it looked like they were all huddled around where I thought this fish was. I thought maybe they were having a difficult time trying to get the hook out of the fish's mouth, or they were measuring it. I'm not really quite sure. And then after a while I see one of them look up and say, "Hey, do you have some pliers?" And I was like, "Sure, what do you need? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, one of our friends here just impaled himself with a fish hook." And so they said, can you give us some pliers, or do you have some braided line?" So I used my Altera. I went over to them and I could see the situation, and basically he had his, it was kind of in the late fall, so the pattern was a jigging wrap type of a pattern, at least that they were doing pretty successfully too. And they had hooked a fish and they were trying to take the hook out of the fish's mouth. And as you know, any type of jig and wrap, tikka minnow, any type of those glide baits, they are just full of hooks. And I think as they were trying to unhook it, one of the hooks on, this is a slab wrap, but one of the hooks impaled one of the young men there in his finger. And that's something that we treat not uncommonly in hand surgery in the emergency room. And to us it makes sense how we treat these, which is a certain way that I think we all know how to treat them, but you may not know it, how to safely take these hooks out. And so I thought it'd be a good piece of education just for us to review how to take these hooks out. And it may be intuitive to you, but what I recently saw on social media was one of these legendary fishermen that I just really respect. And they on live TV, they had actually hooked themselves, impaled themselves with a hook. And the technique that he used and he endorsed was getting some braided line, and then tying it, wherever it gets impaled, wherever it's exposed, just tying that to the base of the hook here. And then just like when, I don't know, my dad used to yank my teeth out if it was loose, by just tying some thread and just putting up against the doorknob and just slamming the door. Same concept, just to yank it out. Because as we know, oh gosh, I just stuck myself. That's how commonly this can happen. Anyhow, the barbs, I love and hate barbs. I love them when you have a foul hook, foul set, or you just didn't get a good hook set and you just don't want that fish to come off. But I hate it as a father of 4 kids that fish, and it's just scary to me. And so it's a love-hate type of thing. But those barbs, as you know, that once you get that stuck under your skin, it's hard to take out. You can't just pull it back out. And so the braid technique is so that if it's under your skin, just barely there, and for you to try to fish it out may hurt, then you can just yank it out in one pull. I'd say that for the very superficial impalements, that may be okay. It's probably fine. But in certain cases when it's deeper, unless you really have a good understanding of the anatomy under your skin in whatever part of your body, you can actually cause a worse problem. Typically, I feel like most people are impaling themselves when either they're trying to take the hook out of a fish's mouth, or gosh, I guess it could happen anyway, but I think the most common thing would be in their hand somewhere. And in the hand, there are just so many different, the anatomy is so intricate. There's multiple nerves, tendons, and arteries that if you don't know where that hook is impaled and how deep it is, doing the yanking maneuver can actually cause more problems. And so I thought I would just show you in a cadaver the dangers of pulling it out or yanking it out that way, if you don't really quite know where you are in the hand in terms of the anatomy and how deep you are. And I'll show you a way that you can take it out that we typically do in the emergency department, or very rarely in the operating room, but certainly you can do that in the operating room too. But we typically just do in the ER in a fairly controlled fashion. So things that either you could do if it's fully impaled, or if it's just barely kind of not through and through, but just barely about to pop through the other side of the skin, or if it's really deeply impaled and you just cannot push it through all the way because it hurts and you don't have any local anesthetic, which I guess most people would not. You can do a couple of things to maybe help you pop it through the skin, but if any question at all, just going to the emergency room and having someone deal with it. So I hope you enjoy this educational piece. And just a warning that this kind of detailed anatomy on a cadaver. So if it's bothersome to you, or if you have kids watching, then certainly don't watch it, but I leave that to your discretion. Okay, thanks. Okay, here we have a hook with a really nice barb for this example. I think most patients can get their hook impaled on their hand, commonly in the index finger, as you're trying to take a hook out of a fish or manipulating your line. Now, here the tip of the hook is fully embedded under the skin, and in a lot of cases you can just yank this out. To do that, one way that's described is to put braided line, tie that to the base of the hook, and yank it out. And the idea is if you try to gingerly take it out, it can be painful, but if you can snap it out quickly in one, rip of a band-aid, it may not hurt as much. Now, a lot of times that may be okay, but if you don't know what's on the other side of that, on the deeper portion of the skin, you can hurt something. Now, when you pull here, if you don't have that line coming off the base of the hook, it'll do just that. It'll flip it and not come out and actually hurt more. So if you're going to do this, you want to align the force vector, or the line of pull, in line with that hook. Now, in this example, if you had done that, you can see that that hook is wrapped right around that nerve that I'm pulling here and an artery. They're right next to each other. And so if you yanked it out, that barb would grab the nerve and the artery. And when you pull, it will just tear those structures, and that can cause a real problem. So make a small problem into a much worse problem. You can see that barb is wrapped around those two critical structures. So what we do in the emergency room is to numb up this area and pop that hook all the way through. And then that way, you're in control of taking this hook out without damaging those other structures. If you're going to do this, you want to get your forceps and clamp the end of this hook tip. And then you get like a multi-tool or pliers, something that has a pin cutter, and you could cut the end of that hook. If you don't stabilize that tip with that forceps, when you snap that and cut that hook, that little sharp tip is going to go flying, and you don't want to have like an eye injury or have it just free in your boat somewhere. And then once that barb is out, then you can slowly pull that out. You could try to push that hook tip out through the skin on your own. That may be a little painful, but if you can't, then you probably should just go to the ER and do this safely.